Hello, welcome to the Trews, the True News. If you want to subscribe to it, you can. Click there, right? Is that where you click all? Or there? There. Okay, these are the comments that we've received on our edition on Ferguson, the disturbances in America, in St. Louis. This first one's from Tom Stewart. Let's not forget that Mark Duggan was illegally carrying a firearm. I mentioned Mark Duggan and the riots in England a couple of years ago. Let's not be too hasty to draw parallels. As much as I welcome change, it's naive to think that revolution can bring real change. I just think there were some parallels, man. I'm not saying it's an absolute carbon copy facsimile of the situation, because that sort of thing don't happen often in reality. I'm just saying it was a black person getting killed by the police in a primarily black area that led to social disturbances. I mean, it's quite a lot of parallels. Come on, Tom Stewart. I mean, it's, you know, what I think is important, Tom, is that these incidents provide a flashpoint, because it seems to be a kind of, what do I want to say, a catharsis for an underlying feeling, or if not, you know, a detonation of an underlying feeling. That's the thing where I do think there's a corollary or a parallel. I'd like Russell to reconsider his position on voting. It's so important for young people to engage with politics and vote. For me, that's a contradiction. By voting, you are complying to a pre-existing system. I think we need real significant change, and that real change won't come if enough people are compliant. So while you see voting as expressing yourself, I see it as compliance with the system. I don't think that voting has to be like that. I don't think that all voting is bad, as I've said many times. I just think it's pointless unless there's something to vote for. And Beckett says, Russell, if you said this not so many years ago, I might have agreed it was about race solely or mostly, not so much today, and I do feel this is a very easy place to take it. At least some of the cops in this horror are black anyway. I don't know, race, poverty, I mean, just it seems in America, because actually, if you watch that excellent Eugene Jarecki documentary, The House I Live In, you see how certain racial groups are victimised and have been throughout history. He talks about in American history primarily in his documentary, and how now, due to the meth epidemic, as poverty grows, more people are affected. So now white people are being affected. I think the defining factor is possibly poverty, but any American disturbance where the majority of the authorities are white and the majority of the victims or protesters or whatever are black, I mean, it seems by default a racial issue. The butterfly painter. If you assault a police officer and attempt to run away, you'll probably be shot regardless of your race. We need to have more respect for the law. You're one of them ones where it makes me laugh that you're called the butterfly painter, and then you've got sort of quite a strict and authoritative worldview. If you assault a police officer and attempt to run away, you will probably be shot regardless of your race. We need to have more respect for the law. What you're neglecting there is the underlying social tension. Perhaps if black people and white people have been living in harmony in America for hundreds of years now. Oh, this is one-off incident. Okay, well, let's all sit down and have a talk about it. No, this incident is one of a long line of comparable incidents that seem to have a connection or a theme. Otherwise, these disturbances wouldn't be happening. What do you think everyone's doing? Just gone nuts. Everyone's gone, oh, brilliant, let's go nuts for no reason. It's not like a surrealist protest. It's the latest in a sequence of events. Tandy Moran on the Ferguson issue says, I agree with all the points made, but I don't like how you portray white people like they all live in ivory towers pulling strings or something. There's a massive difference in the ratio of poor black people versus other races, but don't forget the majority of poor people are white. IMO rich versus poor, in my opinion, rich versus poor is a more accurate description of the divide rather than black versus white. I think more broadly across the world, Tangy Moran, I agree with you. That's the real issue, that the only difference is people with power and people without power. So, yeah, fair enough, in a broader context, but in that particular context, as you've said yourself, you know, the difference of ratio between poor black people versus other races is particularly apposite in that condition, or in that particular situation, so that's why it's been spoken of in those terms. And obviously I don't think that all white people are in ivory towers, although I'm in quite a nice tower myself. I didn't used to be in a nice tower, so I know that myself. Steve Powell, smashing up shop, I would definitely agree, is social unrest. Smashing up a shop and carrying off a telly is something else though, and there lies the problem. As much as the former is legitimate, perhaps even expected, the latter always overshadows that. Yeah, but I think, Steve, because of the way it's reported as well as anything else, I mean, in a way, in a corporate and commercial culture, these icons, these items of materialism, at some point are going to become sort of central in unrest. Now, like, these are like a lot of riots we've had in the last, I don't know, 10 years don't seem to be ideologically motivated, because there isn't someone up the front saying, we're going to storm into Foot Locker and take all the training shoes because of demonstration. But just because those points aren't articulated, it doesn't mean that that's relevant. If you have poor, disenfranchised people that are constantly marketed products that they can't afford, then every so often there's going to be an explosive event. And the looting, I think it's incidental. I don't think people are like, I'm really happy in life. Right, here's an opportunity, now do some looting. It's that there is a discontent, a dissatisfaction. There must be, look at the culture we live in, the prominence of advertising, the prominence of commerciality. There's not going to be the unique consequence of that is just consumerism, because there's loads of people that can't afford the stuff, so there are going to be secondary side effects, and this is one of them. When there's a detonation or an explosion of social unrest, you're going to get those kind of events. Man of Knowledge 1000, how is it Russell thinks there is no need for an investigation? Was he there? I do think there's a need for an investigation. Did he see what happened? No. Is there a video of the actual incident? No, there's an eyewitness though. As far as I'm aware, there's no video, and I doubt that he was there. So in a democratic society, we should wait until after the investigation before passing judgment, and rioting and looting is not going to help anything. They're only destroying their own community. Well, that's an interesting point. They obviously don't feel that they are destroying their own community, do they? People that are rioting obviously feel like they have no vested interest in that community, that community is excluding them, that community is a realisation of an ideology that excludes people that can't afford to participate. Now, therein lies the problem. If you did feel that you were connected to your community, that you were invited to participate, that you were represented, then of course you wouldn't smash it up. So that is the point you're at. It's not like, you've answered your own question, you've identified the problem yourself. A riot is not a protest, it's just people using tragedy as an excuse to go out thieving. Think about that. When you talk about that, mate, Man of Knowledge 1000, these are people like you. Would you do that? Would you go, there's been a tragedy, it's an excuse to go out looting? So they won't either. They're like you. They're the same as you. Now, if you were put in a position where you felt that you were oppressed, disenfranchised, then one of your, then a member, someone that you identified with in one way or another gets murdered, then perhaps, there's no point in questioning it. The fact that it's happening means that it's happening, that's its own rationale. It's empirically happening. So, if the cop really did do that, then he's got to be crazy. He must want to go to jail or get the electric chair. Again, life's not like that, is it? There's institutions, institutionalised mentality. Of course, there's a rationale for the actions of the policeman. He didn't do an irrational thing either, but we're not asking the right questions. Obviously, the institution of law and order needs looking at if these kind of things frequently occur. Another thing I don't get is, why is it every time a black person is killed by the police, it sparks riots? Well, I'll tell you. It's because what it is it's an extreme example of something that's consistently felt, that the police are oppressing that community. And when it reaches the fever pitch of the transgression of murder, then it becomes unbearable. People just silently bear it in quiet desperation. And then every so often something so awful happens. It's like, oh, that's enough now. There's no point in being reasonable. That's why that happens. And then Cristo Bobalakito says, crazy the way the American police now look like soldiers carrying military weapons and body armour. That is crazy. It's interesting what's happening. It seems like it's just like that people know that capitalism is coming to an end. What will follow capitalism? Something that requires more authority to be maintained, unless we demand a more equal and participatory type of society. That is the Trews edition on Ferguson comments. Thank you very much for watching. Subscribe there by clicking on that thing. It gives us more power that we promise to share with you. Thanks very much for watching the Trews. My name is Russell Brand, as far as I can tell.
Is a tool that is abused to fool you and to leave you scared and confused. Trews is like the news. If the news was true, I want some Trews. Let's have some Trews.